So you're planning to deliver some kind of plugin for workday systems?
Right, yeah.
Okay, that's good. And other storage types, for example, Emacs, all that, you show PowerMax.
It's the branding is PowerMax. It does work for VMAX All Flash also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unity,
It will come. Working on it.
Working on it.
That is next after Unity. They'll all be done. It is in the list. So we'll get there.
So you're essentially kind of doing, I know, like doing away with Viper. So
Yeah.
you're kind of putting it all into different plugins
Yes.
right now, or
Yes.
is it?
Yes.
ECS?
ECS, that's interesting. What I would like, maybe I'll follow up with you after. I would like to understand what is it BRO use case for ECS? So I need to better understand that. And if there is a valid use case, a lot of customers ask for it, we certainly add that. So far, there haven't been many asks for ECS BRO, so just had not added it yet. Extreme.io BRO already exists. It's out there today. That was the first one actually. Terraform, so for this year we want to focus on VRO and Ansible. And like I said earlier, whichever one we pick, we want to support all of these arrays. So it's work to go 2 plugins times 6 platforms, so there are like 12 plugins we are writing, right? Once they're all done, then we pick the next set of tools. And Terraform is coming up quite a bit, so maybe that will be the one that we pick after this, but early next year. I don't think it will be this year.
Is there an idea just to let, like, to expose an XML type API down to the arrays instead of community drive?
Isn't that,
That's what I'm saying, exactly, expose that.
so what is the
What's the
question?
downside to exposing the API to the community, to the public, and just letting people write those?
But the REST API is open. You can use it today. All our REST APIs are there. You can build it. I don't mean that you should, but because we are doing the work for you, anybody can take our APIs and build out such workflows. But we want to offer out of the box so that you don't have to spend the time. So we want to do the work for you and make it easy for you to use our storage. But at the same time, the APIs are open. Anybody can build these workflows today also. And some of our customers have gone ahead and done that.
What about recovery pools?
No plans in the list right now. Again, it's all driven by customers like yourselves, right? So wherever the higher number of asks are, we prioritize that. I would say though that we want to go after the primary arrays first. Once we have a good handle on that, then Vplex is next, and we can look at recover point if there is enough demand. There's one more. Yes, sir.
Are there REST APIs for the complete product portfolio?
Complete. Every array has REST API.
So just to add to Terraform concern or question, Terraform supports Ansible today, so technically you can run Ansible from Terraform.
That's a good point, that you don't have to wait for our plugin to come out. You could use the Ansible modules that we will put out there, and you can build the sort of import the Ansible modules into Terraform. All right, so the other question is, I jumped. How important is it to have REST API access? So this is where I want to ask that how many of you or people in your teams consume our REST APIs directly? We have a lot of customers asking for Ansible and VRO and these kinds of integrations, but are there people who use REST APIs? Okay, I'm seeing a lot of hands. If you guys can stay after the session, there is further discussion I would like to engage with you. I don't want to distract this discussion, but I would like to better understand what are you using those APIs for. Is it essentially to build some sort of automation on top, or what exactly do you use those APIs for? And the next question would be, since you use, quite a few of you raised your hands, you use our APIs, and our APIs are different going from one array to another is because the arrays are so different from one another. They offer different capabilities. How important is it for you that we offer a standard API?
Yes.
Somebody said yes? Okay, so let's get through this. If we have time, maybe we'll get into this discussion while we have all of you here. This is very good. All right, so I'll give it to Ojis and
Containers. Well, this is probably the logical flow. Containers are used for virtualizing applications. Containers have been known for quite some time, probably over a decade, Linux containers. They gained popularity around 2015, 16, when Docker commercialized containers, and then further gained popularity when Kubernetes appeared in the community. Can you please raise your hand who is using containers today? Okay, very good, very good. Another question, who used containers with persistent storage? Okay, got it. So just very briefly, how containers are different from the virtual environment, from the VMs. Essentially, both technologies are virtualization technologies. Containers virtualizing runtime environment for the applications, and VMs, or hypervisor virtualizing environment for the operating system. So different level, different use cases. Containers came up mainly to support cloud-native applications, ephemeral applications that live probably from somewhere from a few seconds to a few minutes, not more than that. And people thought that virtual environment and VMs will be an overkill for those type of applications. Plus, nobody really want to pay extra tax for running VMs. Benefits include resource utilization efficiency. Containers are much faster compared to VMs. You can launch a new container in a matter of seconds. Enable microservice patterns, consistent environments, and build once, run anywhere. So the thought was, we build environment or we build application in the cloud. We can move it on-prem, back and forward without any restrictions. So even though containers were built for ephemeral applications, the use cases expanded quite significantly. So this is what Gartner is reporting on the use cases for containers. As I mentioned before, primary use case was cloud-native applications. That's far on the right. What we see, or what Gartner is seeing, is that lift and shift is happening also. So people are taking legacy monolithic applications, containerizing those applications, and then running them as containers. So this is quite popular use case, considering that Microsoft is end of EOLing Windows 2008. So applications that depend on Windows 2008 being containerized and run as containers. So quite efficient in way of doing things. The case in the middle is probably the most complex case, because you take the applications, monolithic applications that were built for mainframe, and you decomposing those applications into microservices and using more agile infrastructure, more lean infrastructure. So this is most complicated use case, not because of technology is not available, but simply because there's so much cultural shift has to happen in order to achieve this. So personally, I have some experience with this use case. I have to go through multiple ROI rounds and things like that. So it was quite the challenge. And then farther on the right, cloud-native applications, obviously. As I mentioned earlier, containers were primarily built for ephemeral applications. Unfortunately, ephemeral applications are fewer compared to the stateful applications. Stateful applications need to have persistent storage. And containers were not designed to support persistent storage. So industry realized, hey, this is a problem. We need to come up with a solution. and solutions started piling up. But the problem was everybody was developing a different solution. Right? So Kubernetes came up with Flex Volume, Docker with another technology, and those technologies were just not compatible with each other. For storage vendors like us, that was overkill. Luckily, this was addressed quite often, quite soon. So industry realized that we need to consolidate on the spec. We need to build a single spec and adopt that single spec across all container orchestrators. So that's how CSI born, right? So community-driven standard where vendors like NetApp, Dell EMC come together, like Google and all others, come together and develop the spec that works, that addresses market needs, that addresses needs of cloud-native applications. So this spec is basically addressing all the challenges that the previous technology had. It's vendor neutral, it's a control plane only, and it enables persistent storage for the containers. So some of you may know that CSI specification was G8 November last year. So what G8 means, it's suitable for production environment, right? So prior to that, this was in a beta mode, meaning you can use it in test environment, in development environment, but not really suitable for the production environment. Unfortunately, CSI 1.0 is not yet available in any commercial distributions. Even though it's designed to work for production workflows, it is not yet available in any commercial distributions yet.